Hello and welcome to Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we visit with the true crime author, John Glatt. Enjoy. I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Tangled Vines Power, Privilege, and the Murdaugh Family Murders by John Glatt. Among the lush, tree-lined waterways of South Carolina's Low Country, the Murdaugh name means power. A century-old multi-million-dollar law practice has catapulted the family into incredible wealth and local celebrity. But it was an unimaginable tragedy that would thrust them into the national limelight. On June 7th, 2021, prominent attorney Alex Murdaugh discovered the bodies of his wife Maggie and son Paul on the grounds of their 1,000-acre hunting lodge. The mystery deepened only months later when Alex himself was discovered shot in the head on a local roadside. But as authorities scrambled for clues and the community reeled from the loss and media attention, dark secrets about this Southern legal dynasty came to light. The Murdaughs, as it turned out, were feared as much as they were loved, and they wouldn't hesitate to wield their influence to protect one of their own. 2 years before he was killed, a highly intoxicated Paul Murdaugh was at the helm of a boat when it crashed and killed a teenage girl, and his light treatment by police led to speculation that privilege had come into play. As bombshells of financial fraud were revealed and more suspicious deaths were linked to the Murdaughs, a new portrait of Alex Murdaugh emerged, a desperate man on the brink of ruin who would do anything, even plan his own death, to save his family's reputation. We are very pleased to welcome to the program John Glatt. He is a true crime author we have followed for years. He has a wonderful book out called Tangled Vines, which covers the horrible story of the Murdaugh family. Welcome, John.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I am just fascinated. Do you love true crime and that's why you've gotten into writing it over the years? Was it what you wanted to write first, or is it something that you kind of shifted into after trying other things?
Oh, no, I fell into it after a long time with another career. I mean, I started off as a local paper journalist in England in my early 20s and moved over to New York, where I was a journalist for many years. And I started writing books about 30 years ago, and my first books were actually rock and roll orientated. I did the unauthorized biography of Bill Graham called Rage in 1993. I did a book on River Phoenix, a book on the Monaco royal family, and then I just kind of gravitated towards true crime, which I've always been interested in. So this is my 25th book, True Crime.
Nice.
And I've been doing them for about 25 years now. I think Tangled Vines is probably the most complicated and interesting for me and I devoted 2 years of my life to it. So
Wow.
This whole case, it boggles the mind. We had you on about the children in the family in California. I can't.
Oh, the one in Paris County where they
Yeah.
had all those kids in the.
that was the family next door about the turning.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was it. That was it.
Started in North Carolina, then they went to Texas, and finally in California. That's
Mhm. It was wild, is what it was. So to hear you say that this new one is the most complex is very intriguing.
well, it's labyrinthine, really, because there's just so many different strands to it.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, there's the criminal case, the Murdaughs that came to trial, very sensational trial in February, I might add.
Yes.
Where he was found guilty of murdering his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul.
Mhm.
I mean, I think most of America was watching that. It seemed to be a national obsession.
I was.
Yeah. There's a whole civil side that he's being sued by multitude of his clients, in his civil practice, who he literally stole millions from. And there's probably like 120 indictments now in so many different areas. So there's going to be a lot of legal action and trials going on for the next couple of years or more, I think.
Well, I noticed that in reading your book, it got up to when he was indicted, but it didn't cover the trial. Are you going to write?
I have news for you. What you have is a galley, which is an early copy. I've actually updated it for the real book. For the trial, I have 2 or 3 extra chapters covering the complete trial in the product, which will be on sale on August 8th. Tangled Vines. I'm very proud about that. And unfortunately, you didn't get an updated version because it wasn't ready at the time. But no, I assure the readers there's going to be a lot of coverage of the trial.
How exciting. And that's very cool as far as diving in. I didn't get a chance to read it. So I'm coming from the opposite end of Anne. I've, seen the Netflix stuff, watched the YouTube stuff. I think one of the things that's so fascinating, especially in the United States thing, is that for years and years and years, there have always been these families that get away with everything. And, as long as you have enough money and it's the core of a bunch of thriller novels, that there's this family in town that they have control over everything. Even I think NCIS had an episode where they were the top tier of that community and there were all of these very bad things, but they never got taken down. And so seeing a family that has all of that and is being held accountable is,
about this is what you're talking about in spades, in fact, because the Murdaughs are literally ruled 5-county area. They called it the Low Country in South Carolina.
Yes.
That's kind of apt in a way, but it's a massive area, and it all started with Alex Murdaugh's great-grandfather, Randolph Sr., who started a law firm in 1910. In 1920, he was elected solicitor of the 15th District of South Carolina Judicial, and he pretty well ran it. I mean, he was the law unto himself. The solicitor is like a prosecutor, a district attorney, and over the years, through his family, they became very rich. And they ran the whole legal system as well. I mean, they were the ones that got judges elected, which obviously helped them in their court cases. Police were under their thumb. So they really controlled this whole area. And I think it was an anachronism because most of the country that would have disappeared, coming into the mid-20th century. But really, in that area of the Low Country, it's lasted right up to the fall of the House of Murdaugh, which, I chronicle in the book. And I go back to the beginning and I kind of blow by blow describe how it's happened. And it's a very distinct timeline because it's such a complicated story. I don't think readers have ever had the chance before to I walk them through everything that happened, right from the very beginning till, this climax of the trial. So I think it'll be something new to people that have been following the case. I've found a lot of new things that people never knew about before.
Okay.
Yes, you did. One of the things that really stuck to me was when that poor girl was killed on the boat.
Mallory Beach.
Alex Murdaugh and his father came to the hospital and inserted themselves right into it. I'm their lawyer. I'm speaking for them.
And that's the wild thing too, is that again, there's so much rumor about these things happening, but there are so many people in society who are like, oh, that's an exaggeration. That never actually happens. And so to see it happen on CCTV, the different pieces, and then I'm sure walking through it in your book is like, oh, wow, well, that's actually worse than I thought was possible.
Oh, I mean, it's a real case of fact is, stranger than fiction. When Alex Murdaugh and his father, Randy, came to the hospital to lawyer up with Paul and the other teenagers that had been on board with him, who were all underage and had all been drinking very heavily, Alex pulled out his official badge because he was actually an assistant solicitor. And he actually helped his father try cases in the 14th district. And he pulled out his badge and he showed it to everyone like he was an officer of the law as he walked to the hospital. That's something that came out at trial, which was really significant. He really thought he was above the law. The Murdaughs really did their downfall because there was total arrogance, and the word I like to use is hubris. To get away with anything. And they had for over 100 years, but finally, after Paul crashed his boat and killed poor Mallory Beach, 2019, that's when the House of Murdaugh started to crumble.
Now, in your opinion, and we all just have opinions nowadays, do you think Maggie had to die because she was protecting Paul, or because she was going to blow Alex out of the water legally?
I don't know. There are reports that Maggie was seeing a divorce lawyer prior to her murder. My personal theory is that everything was coming to a head with the boat crash, civil litigation. I mean, the Murdaughs were being sued for, many millions of dollars for the wrongful death of Mallory Beach. Paul was also, there was a criminal thing, I think it was boating under the influence. I'm not sure of the exact charge. There was a criminal thing going on as well. But in the civil litigation, Mark Tinsley, who was the Beach lawyer, had filed a motion to compel Alex Murdaugh to reveal all his finances, everything he had, his property, his money in the bank, his bank accounts, everything. And that was coming up 3 days after the murder. There was a hearing where Alex Murdaugh could well have been compelled to reveal everything. I suspect, and other people do, really brought things to a head, because if that had come out, it would have revealed that Alex Murdaugh had in fact been robbing his client of almost $10 million over the years. So I think that was maybe why this might have happened. Also, to protect the family legacy. He was very important to him. He shouldn't be tarnished. And many people think, in fact, he was the next in line to be a solicitor after his father, Randy. That's what the thought was, because he was very adept lawyer, very wily, good at what he did. He had a lot of influence. He was president of the South Carolina Association of Justice 5 years running. So, I mean, there was a lot of thought that he would carry on, as solicitor, but he decided not to, probably because there was more money to be made in his civil practice, let alone robbing his clients.
Right, by stealing, as you do.
The judge intimated in the sentencing that he may have done it to protect the Murdaugh family name.
Back in the day, when Low Country was Low Country and there were massive families who had massive farms and plantations and stuff, family was huge. That was a huge thing. You did anything you could to protect the family name. And yet in the 21st century, there aren't a lot of people who still look at it quite in that same way. We don't necessarily let things slide just because you don't want to tarnish your family's name. So to see that in real time and Technicolor was very fascinating, to see what some people's egos will allow. That they just, well, all right, so the woman who cleans the house, she knows things and shouldn't, and so she's going, and I hit the kid on the road, and we're just going to kind of shove that under the table because it happened. But we are more important than the justice system, which, being in the justice system, that just seems so odd to me that you would consider that.
Yeah, I mean, and the Murdaughs thought they were above the law. They always did, and
Yeah.
they were the law. So, really, they dictated the law. And
Right.
you're referring to, first of all, Stephen Smith,
Yes.
who was openly gay in Hampton County, which is a very homophobic place. And he was quite open about it. He was a medical student. He'd actually been in high school, the Wade Hampton High School, in the same class as Buster Murdaugh. And there were rumors that they had some kind of relationship, although that's not substantiated, but those were the rumors. And suddenly Stephen Smith is found, I think, at 4 a.m, lying dead in the middle of a very rural road.
Yes.
First, highway patrol officers investigating, they presumed he'd been murdered. They put it as a murder. Over the next few months, it was covered up,
Yeah.
for years. And there were never any charges, although Buster Murdaugh, I mean, I've got all the investigation documents, was a prime suspect. He would never answer the calls, and they never actually interviewed him.
That's another book.
Well, I've done a lot on it. I mean, that's 2 or 3 chapters in my book about
Yes,
this.
it is.
I think when these are all resolved, there would be an update to the book, definitely, because it's ongoing. And the other case you refer to is Gloria Satterfield, who was the Murdaugh housekeeper for more than 20 years, who in fact was the nanny and brought up Paul and Buster, the 2 sons.
I know. Like, how do you do that?
Well, Maggie was kind of I wouldn't say an absent mother, but she liked to delegate responsibility to Gloria to bring them up. And supposedly they adored Gloria. They all had pet names for each other. And then 2019, I think it was that, she's walking up the stairs to Moselle, which is where the Murdaughs lived. And somehow she tripped over and fell down, hit her head, and it was a fatal injury. In a couple of weeks, she would die.
Yeah. I just don't believe it.
In my version of this story, Paul pushed her because she was going to make him behave or something. He didn't mean to, but I think Paul pushed her and she fell.
Well, there's certain rumors about that. That's one of them, but there are many different rumors.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But what was interesting about that was Alex, at Gloria's funeral, immediately assumed responsibility. He took Gloria's 2 sons to one side. One of them is kind of has problems. He's challenged. And he explained that it was his 2 dogs that were responsible for tripping Gloria up. And therefore he felt responsible. And he said, I will sue myself in order to make things right, and you will get a lot of money out of it. They agreed. He then told them that the lawyer that would handle it was a guy called Corey Fleming. He omitted to tell them, in fact, Corey Fleming was one of his best friends. They'd been roommates at South Carolina Law School. Corey Fleming was also Paul Murdaugh's godfather. Gloria's sons knew nothing about this, and eventually they won $505,000 in one lawsuit against Alex, and I think it was $3 million in another. The sons never knew anything about this. All this money went to Alex Murdaugh through sleight of hand into his account. And it was when these things kind of broke after the boat crash that one of the sons saw a report that, I think in Fitz News, that there'd been a payout for an elderly woman the same age as his mother to do with the Murdaughs of this money, and tried to get a lawyer. In fact, that's another story, because most of the lawyers he initially approached refused to have anything to do with it because they were the Murdaughs. And eventually he found a lawyer, I think in Charleston, called Eric Bland, who took it on and won the case for him and got this money back. She considers herself one of the Murdaugh family, She loved them.
Yeah. You ended up being inconvenienced.
What happened with Mr. Fleming? He was disbarred, right?
Yes, he was disbarred. He was a trial, actually. Yeah.
Was he criminally charged?
Yes, he was.
Same as.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the title is like spot on.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you came up with that, excellent job. If you didn't, we'll still say excellent job.
For it, but my editor Martins came up with it. And the irony was that we had this title, and then when he was testifying on the stand, Alex Murdaugh, he referred to what happened to himself as a tangled web. He quoted Shelley or somebody about it's a tangled web we found ourselves in.
Yeah.
Which irony, because the book had already been titled many months before, but
I love it.
it kind of came into place, I thought. Yeah.
Serendipity.
Did
Right,
you
right, right.
actually attend the trial?
No, I didn't, but it was so many people there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was being gathered to gavel, all the local TV stations.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So, I mean, I just sat at home and watched it,
Right.
It was advantageous to me to be doing it at home because I could make notes, I could record
Right.
things. Actually, when I started researching the book, I spent nearly a month in Hampton around there researching, talking to people, trying to find as many people that knew the Murdaughs that would talk to me. And I got very lucky, in that I got some very key interviews that gave me a lot of insight into the story and into the Murdaugh family, and also a feel for the place, because the Low Country is such a unique place. And coming from London, England, I'd never really been anywhere like that before. So to me, it was a real experience. And I think it gave me color to paint into the book that I wouldn't have otherwise. In South Carolina, that is like that, which is like a throwback to the 18th, 19th century.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Do you have any insight on what's going on with Buster?
Not really. I mean, I know he has a job working for, I think, Wild Wings in the corporate office. In fact, one of the things was kicked out of South Carolina law school for plagiarism. And in fact, he was like the fourth or fifth generation of the Murdaughs to go there. So that was pretty bad. And Alex was trying to get him back. Even from jail, he was negotiating. They paid a real key, important politician to try and get Buster reinstated in South Carolina law school, but that hasn't really gone very well. And I don't think he's ever going to carry on in the family tradition as a lawyer.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah, he keeps very low profile. He's got his girlfriend, Brooklyn White. They were both seen at the trial every day. There's a lot of speculation now with what's going on with the Stephen Smith case.
Yeah.
The trial, his body's been exhumed, and supposedly there's a grand jury now in session about Stephen Smith. There's certain people that have been named of interest. With Buster, it's just really rumors that have been all this time. So nobody really knows how that's going to turn out. But it should be very exciting.
It should be interesting to see.
Yeah.
What are you working on now? What nefarious crime can we look for?
I'm actually taking the summer off. I've been working flat out. This was my 30th book. I figured I needed a few months just to come up for air and see where I go from here. Interesting projects in mind, that I'm trying to develop.
We'll allow that for right now.
Thank you. Thanks.
But you need to get back, because
I will.
I just looked at the pages. Oh no, I'm gonna get hooked. This is gonna have to be one of those where I know I don't have to make dinner and I've already showered, and it's okay if I stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning.
You will.
I will thank you for that now, because I'm pretty sure I'll be cursing you while I'm actually reading it. So we'll just start out with the thank you.
Okay. I'll take that.
The one thing you're writing, when you get into it, this can't be real. This cannot be really happening. People aren't this evil, but they are. And you've proved that 30 times over.
There's still enough of us that are good. We're gonna balance that. But that kind of stuff is fascinating. I remember being younger and reading true crime stuff. Like, I read it in fascination, and yet when you really think about it, it's like, how do you live in the midst of that? You know, maybe you check out, maybe you just kind of say, I can't do anything about this, but I have to make the very best of what I've got. Some people go the other way, and some people sit in it and revel and then try to figure out, how far can I push this? Where exactly is that line?
Well, look at Paul Murdaugh. He was
Yeah.
so arrogant. I mean, you'll do what I say. You won't question me.
But he
Yeah.
was a Murdaugh. He was brought up a Murdaugh, and I spoke to people that knew them growing up, and they all told me, you know, Maggie especially would say, "You are a Murdaugh," right from infancy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like being the royal family, the Low Country. It's very much like that, and they grew up with a sense of entitlement that they could get away with anything.
To put a dot on the I, Maggie was not an innocent bystander. She was a Murdaugh through and through. She took advantage of being a Murdaugh.
You know, she married well.
Yeah.
Life she had. Told me she wasn't very happy moving to Hampton because there's a lot of culture in Hampton.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially when they married, they lived in Beaufort, which is a totally different part of the Low Country.
Yeah.
More sophisticated, more good restaurants, fashionable shops and things. But Alex made her move to Hampton, which was a sacrifice for Maggie, I think, you know. You know, I feel horrible for her, you know.
I felt sorry for her too, but she was not unaware of the power of the Murdaugh name.
How that works. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I do find it fascinating. So you were talking about, it goes back to the great grandfather, is that correct? So Alex's great grandfather, so it'd be Alex, his dad, his dad's dad, his dad's dad. So here where I live, I'm in Pennsylvania, we have Milton Hershey School, and the Hershey's is a huge thing here.
Hershey, yes.
Okay, so I live like 20 minutes from Hershey. Milton Hershey didn't have any children. Things were dispersed, but for a lot of like the Hiltons, some of the Kennedys, the Wanamakers, where the first person at the top busts their rear end for something, because they want it, and then the second generation was like in the middle of that busting, and so they kind of get what the work ethic is that was required to start, and then the third generation kind of gets coddled and pushed through in a way, I guess. Yeah, because they don't know what it took to get it, they just have it. And then like the fourth generation is, this is mine, I deserve this, it belongs to me. Now, I'm not saying that the first generation was pure or that any of them were pure. I have seen in a number of instances where the farther down you go in generations of people who might not have started out with a lot but had a lot at the end, that the behavior sometimes de-escalates pretty quickly.
Yeah, right.
I read somewhere that they were going to reopen some of the cases that were decided by these judges that were, quote, cronies of the Murdaughs. Do you know anything about that?
There's been a lot of indictments. I mean, I don't know about reopening the cases, but there's been a lot of indictments of him, you know, stealing from probably a dozen or more of his clients, millions.
Wow.
He's been indicted for that. They're going to come to trial, you know, in the coming future. So in terms of reopening, that's going to be reopening, definitely.
That's wow.
Yeah, whether he appears in court for them, which you'll probably have to, is another thing. I think, are we going to have all these trials down the line? Because the Attorney General's office prosecutor, Creighton Waters, wants to, I think, give, you know, the victims their day in court, you know, the satisfaction of, you know, giving Alex Murdaugh his comeuppance, you know?
Yeah.
Have you seen in the last day or two, they showed on one of these blurbs, they showed Alex Murdaugh taking selfies in his cell, topless.
Well, yeah, I saw that. So as far as I understand it, what is it? The inmates where he is, they're all given iPads, which they can, you know, communicate certain things with family or whatever. And I think when he turns on the iPad, it takes a photo or something.
Oh,
I
Lord.
guess it got out through freedom of information
I
requests,
guess.
but I did see them. They're pretty gross, actually.
Oh, I hope he's not sending those out.
Well, they've gone public anyway.
Well, John, we thank you for talking with us.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
very interesting. This whole case
Yeah.
just has the whole United States on the edge. I really think anybody who doesn't know the whole story needs to read this book. I think they will be very pleasantly surprised at the detail in here that you have.
And there's a lot of new stuff, I might
I
add.
was just going to say there's things that I didn't see in the regular stuff.
Yeah.
We thank you again and good luck with the book. And next case you have coming up, be sure and send us a copy so we can get you back on.
Yeah, and I hope I don't keep you up at night too much.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen. I know that that's on me. I'm aware of that. But
Well,
thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye. Bye.
Trivia. Last week's question was, which mystery author ran for president? A. James Patterson. B. John Le Carre. C. Michael Connolly. Or D. Brad Thor. The answer is D. Brad Thor. Thor announced his candidacy for president of the United States in the 2020 election. But on July 5th, 2018, he decided against running and left the Republican Party, becoming an independent, citing frustration with the Republican-controlled Congress and President Donald Trump. This week's question is, author Eric von Lustbader was born and raised in Greenwich Village, New York. As a child, he rubbed elbows with Hollywood royalty David and Keith Carradine. How? A, they were church acolytes together. B, they played together. C, he delivered newspapers to them. Or D, they babysat for him. Tune in next week for the answer. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode. We thank John Glatt for talking with us. I highly recommend this book. He did an amazing job of sussing out all the hidden facts that a lot of people didn't have in their books. So be sure and check that out. I hope you'll join us next week. We have another fascinating author for you to meet. And remember,
Life would be boring without a little mystery.
bye.